Hey, what's up? This is Kevin from Peacock Inside Tech, and I bet if I would ask 10 people what is the most important feature on a smartphone, 9 out of 10 of those people would probably say the camera. And Xiaomi has done their research because it seems that they know that as well. So their solution is to put a flagship camera in a budget phone. Now, does that make the Xiaomi Mi Note 10 a great camera phone, or does it also make it a great all-around phone? I'm going to answer that question in this video. So let's start with the main attraction here. When I first saw the Penta camera set up on the back of the Mi Note 10, I thought it was overkill. And I thought the 108 megapixel sensor was unnecessary and probably a gimmick. I do still think it's overkill, but all of those sensors make it one of the most flexible smartphone cameras that I've ever used. Listen to these specs. A 32 megapixel selfie camera, a 5 megapixel telephoto camera with 5 times optical zoom, 12 megapixel portrait camera with a dual pixel autofocus, 20 megapixel ultra wide camera, 2 megapixel macro camera, and last but definitely not least, 108 megapixel ultra high resolution camera. And all of those numbers just mean one thing: the Mi Note 10 can produce some awesome pics. The quality, the sharpness, it's all insane. DxOMark gave the Mi Note 10 a score of 121, which is the highest score ever for a smartphone other than the Huawei Mate 30 Pro. Although I don't rely completely on the DxOMark scores, it's always a good indication of if a smartphone camera is good or not. The camera app is also really easy to use. You can swipe between the different modes like on the iPhone or the Pixel, and the layout is simple, and there are a lot of different options that you can play around with, like different filters and beauty modes. I've never seen so many beauty modes before. You can tweak everything on your face, even your hairline. I mean, maybe I should start using this, but there are boatloads of features here. So let's take a look at some image quality here. Starting with the selfie camera. Up until now, my favorite selfie camera came from the Google Pixel, but I think that the Pixel has finally been dethroned by this 32 megapixel beast of a selfie camera. The sharpness, the color rendering, and just the overall detail is amazing. I'm not a selfie person, but if I was, this would definitely be the phone to get. So if you are a selfie person, you can just stop watching and go buy the Mi Note 10. Let's talk about this new 108 megapixel Samsung sensor. We all know megapixels aren't everything, and there are a lot of other different factors that play a part in creating good images, but having 108 megapixels on the Mi Note 10 is super cool and practical. It picks up so much detail that you can crop in forever and the pic still stays sharp and usable. In standard mode, the camera defaults to 27 megapixel pics, which is still a lot of resolution to play with, and therefore really big file sizes, with one picture file coming in at about 12.5 megabytes. But if you want to shoot at the full 108 megapixel, there's also a mode for that. But of course, that also takes even more storage at around 15 megabytes per pic. It's really amazing how sharp the pictures come out with this camera. So far, the Mi Note 10 has produced some great pics. Even indoors, when the lights gets a little dimmer, you can still see a lot of detail and there's very low noise. Video is also great. It can record 4K at 30 frames per second. Unfortunately, no 60 frames per second, but therefore slow motion 1080p at 240 frames per second and 120 frames per second, along with super slow mo at 720p at 960 frames per second. It also comes with some cool vlogging features. I really like this activities effect that they have. You can do some pretty cool things with this. And there are a boatload of other features that I'm not gonna cover in this video. So the cameras are definitely flagship level. There are a few things that I wanna mention though. The processing time after taking a pic is pretty long. I'm not talking about 1 or 2 seconds. More like 5 to 8 seconds. It's a little annoying, but after it processes and you see the result, you forgive this shortcoming. I mean, the phone is processing a 108 megapixel photo. Second is the camera doesn't really perform well in really low light situations. The night mode works well in semi low light situations, but in night shots like you see here, compared to the Pixel 4 and iPhone 11 Pro, the Mi Note 10 is a little behind. But no camera is perfect, and how often are you going to take pics in such dark environments anyway? Oh, and since the cameras are all lined up in a row, my finger sometimes covers up the macro lens, which can be kind of annoying if you think you get a good shot, but your finger ends up blocking part of that picture. So it's pretty obvious that Xiaomi put a lot of focus on the camera. What about other areas that we find important on a smartphone like design? Well, in my opinion, this phone looks great, and not just for a budget phone, but for any phone. It comes in 3 colors: midnight black, glacier white, and aurora green, which is my favorite, by the way. It looks awesome. It also comes with a gorgeous 6.5-inch curved AMOLED display with a full HD plus resolution that is really sharp and nice to look at. On the right side, it has a volume rocker and a power button, and I like the placement here. If you saw my Pixel review, you know that I prefer the power button under the volume rocker, and Xiaomi executed it perfectly. And look here, for the people that are missing the headphone jack, this might be the phone for you because the Mi Note 10 still retains one, which also makes this phone perfect for vlogging because you can connect it to an external mic, and in conjunction with the 6 great cameras, you can get really creative. There is also an IR blaster on the top for those that want to turn their TV on with their phone, if there are people that still want to do that. So it's looking all good. The Mi Note 10 has crushed 2 out of the 3 most important categories for me, camera and design. But what about the performance? Can a Snapdragon 730 mid-range processor perform well enough to power all of these cameras and a large sharp display? The short answer is yes. Kinda. Of course, it is not as powerful as the flagship Snapdragon 855, but for what most people do on their phone, it's more than capable. I did notice a small performance decrease because I'm coming from the fast Pixel 4 and the iPhone 11 Pro, so in comparison, it is a tick slower in opening apps or multitasking, but if you don't have these 2 phones right next to you to compare it to the Mi Note 10, you won't notice it. Playing games and doing all the normal tasks that a normal person would do, everything seems smooth and fast. And at a price point of just 550 euros, mobile photographers, it's a no-brainer. Just go for it. But I know that not everyone is an aspiring photographer, and other specs might be more important. So the Xiaomi Mi Note 10 gets an I rating from me on the P.I.T rating system, which means it's worth considering, especially if you're a mobile photographer or you like to take a lot of pictures with your phone, because this is a great high-end camera at a really good price. I don't think you can find this type of camera flexibility with any other phone in this price range. But if camera isn't your main focus, I can still recommend the Xiaomi Mi 9T Pro, which is also at around the same price point, actually a little bit cheaper at the moment, around 400 euros. But it also has a great camera, and it has high-end specs with the Snapdragon 855 processor. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel if you like this type of content, and to follow me on Instagram at Peacock Inside Tech for more daily updates. See you in the next one.